federal government really has no idea how much their carbon tax is going to cost their own departments. So how on earth can these people tell you how much it's going to cost your family? Way back in October, Conservative MP Karen Vecchio asked the federal government this pretty good order paper question here. With regard to the impact of the increased fuel costs as a result of the federal carbon tax on the Canadian Forces, what was the total amount spent on fuel by the Canadian Forces in 2017-2018? B, what was the projected increase in the amount spent on fuel by the Canadian Forces as a result of the carbon tax for each of the next 5 years? And C, what are the projected total fuel expenditures for each of the next 5 years? Now, the rules around order paper questions are as such that the government has 45 days to provide the answers if they do indeed have them. And 45 days elapsed. And you know what? The federal government doesn't have this answer for Ms. Vecchio. This is what the Department of National Defense sent back to Karen Vecchio. Part A. The Department of National Defense and the Canadian Armed Forces use a wide variety of fuels to accomplish their missions at home and abroad and to conduct training and routine operations. Fuel is purchased to operate vehicles, aircraft, and naval vessels, as well as for heating, cooking, and power generation. The Department of National Defense and the CAF total fuel expenditures for fiscal year 2017-2018 are $194,932,621.96. Part B, of course, is a bunch of government mumbo-jumbo explaining to us that the carbon tax is not actually a carbon tax, but instead a surcharge, like there's any difference in reality at all. And Part C is where the government admits that they don't have a clue about how much their own carbon tax is going to cost the department, a department that tracks fuel costs down to the penny. Give me a break already. Let's read it for ourselves. Part C. Expenditures are a subsection of the operation and maintenance budgets for individual activities. They are not tracked or forecast for the level of the detail required to respond to the question in the allotted time. That's baloney. They absolutely know how much they spend right down to the penny and where they spend it. So don't tell me the Department of National Defense can't tell us how much diesel fuel they bought, how much gasoline they bought, how much propane they bought, how much jet fuel they bought, and then use those numbers to forecast what the costs are going to be now with a carbon tax on top of it all. That is standard budgetary practice. But besides the fact that the Department of National Defense bureaucrats are clearly able to tell us how much they're going to spend on a carbon tax, but they just aren't willing to tell us, there are broader implications here with regard to the government's treatment of the military. It's about where the government is willing to spend money and how. It's about priorities. The government is more than ready to spend even more money on military fuel because the government believes taxes will fight climate change, while at the same time spending money to fight veterans in court over their pensions because the Liberals want to save money there. This is the very same Liberal government that makes the military share sleeping bags amongst themselves to save on costs, but right now they're willing to pay more money for fuel so that the Liberal politicians can preen like environmentalist peacocks towards the rest of the world about just how green they are. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. The Rebel is in an existential fight for survival against Alberta's NDP Premier Rachel Notley. To read all about our battle with her and to help us fight on to live another day, go to standwiththerebel.com.